Princess Leonor names the person who shaped her most, and it's fascinating. What if the person who has shaped Princess Leonor the most isn't someone the world expected? For years, people have watched Leonor grow from a little girl into the future Queen of Spain. We've seen her standing beside King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia. We've watched her deliver increasingly confident speeches. We've watched her begin military training. We've watched her take on responsibilities that would be extraordinary for anyone her age. But behind all of those public moments is a much more personal question: who has actually shaped Princess Leonor into the woman she is becoming? Is it her father, the king? Is it her mother, the queen? Is it a teacher? A military instructor? A historical figure? Or is the answer hidden in the values Leonor repeatedly emphasizes when she speaks about her future? There is no reliable basis for claiming that Leonor has publicly declared one secret person to be the single individual who shaped her more than anyone else. So today, rather than inventing a dramatic revelation, we're looking at the people and influences that are publicly visible in her development and why one influence stands out in particular. Because sometimes, the most revealing answer isn't simply who inspired a future queen, it's what that person taught her. And in Leonor's case, the lesson appears to come back again and again to one word: duty. Chapter 1. Born with a Destiny. Princess Leonor was born on October 31, 2005. From the beginning, her life was different. She wasn't simply the first child of Felipe and Letizia. She was the heir presumptive to the Spanish crown. That meant that while other children could grow up wondering what they wanted to become, Leonor was growing up with a constitutional role waiting for her. Imagine the psychological difference. At school, she was a student. At home, she was a daughter. But in the eyes of the institution, she was also the future queen. That creates enormous expectations. And naturally, the people closest to her would have an extraordinary influence. Chapter 2. The most obvious influence, King Felipe. If we are asking who has shaped Leonor's understanding of royal duty, her father is impossible to ignore. King Felipe VI has spent his entire public life preparing for the crown. Leonor has watched him work. She has seen him receive foreign leaders, deliver national speeches, attend official ceremonies, represent Spain abroad, and navigate difficult moments. For a young person preparing for the same role, that experience is invaluable. Felipe doesn't have to explain every aspect of monarchy to Leonor. She can simply watch. She can see how he behaves when cameras are present, how he interacts with ordinary people, how he speaks during solemn occasions, how he carries himself when the country is watching. For Leonor, her father's life isn't just family history. It is a living lesson in what her future could look like. Chapter 3. But then there is Queen Letizia. If Felipe represents one side of Leonor's education, Queen Letizia represents another. Letizia's background is particularly interesting. Before becoming queen, she worked as a journalist. She wasn't born into a reigning royal family. She developed her own professional identity. She experienced the world outside the palace. Then she entered one of Europe's most visible institutions. That gives Leonor a different kind of example. Her mother understands what it means to communicate with the public. She understands media attention. She understands how quickly a private moment can become a public story. And she understands the challenge of maintaining personal identity while performing an official role. For a future queen living in the age of social media and instant news, that lesson could be incredibly valuable. Chapter 4. The lesson Leonor may have learned from both. Perhaps the most interesting thing isn't choosing between Felipe and Letizia. It's what Leonor can learn from both. From Felipe, duty. From Letizia, communication. From Felipe, constitutional responsibility. From Letizia, adaptability. From Felipe, the weight of the institution. From Letizia, the importance of connecting with the public. Together, they give Leonor a remarkably broad education. And that may be one reason her preparation has been so carefully structured. She isn't being prepared merely to wear a crown. She's being prepared to understand what the crown means. Chapter 5. The role model outside the palace. But there is another possibility. Perhaps the people who have shaped Leonor most aren't famous at all. Think about the people she has encountered during her education and official duties. Teachers, military personnel, scientists, athletes, artists, students, emergency workers, volunteers, people who serve their communities. A future queen needs to understand that Spain isn't simply made up of political institutions. It is made up of ordinary people. And meeting those people can change the way a young royal sees her future role. A teacher might teach patience. A soldier might teach discipline. A scientist might teach curiosity. An athlete might teach resilience. A volunteer might teach compassion. These lessons can become part of a leader's personality. Chapter 6. Why military training could shape her. One of the most significant parts of Leonor's preparation has been her military education. She has trained across Spain's armed forces, including the Army, Navy, and Air and Space Force. That is not a casual experience. Military training places emphasis on discipline, teamwork, and responsibility. It requires people to function as part of a larger organization. For Leonor, this is particularly relevant because the Spanish Constitution gives the monarch important responsibilities connected with the armed forces. But beyond constitutional duties, military training can teach something more personal. How do you respond when you're tired? How do you react when things don't go according to plan? How do you work with people who are different from you? How do you accept criticism? How do you keep going when something is difficult? Those lessons can influence a future leader long after the training ends. Chapter 7 The person who shapes you isn't always the person you expect. There's a deeper point here. When people hear role model, they often imagine someone famous. But the people who shape us most aren't always the people we publicly admire. Sometimes it's a parent. Sometimes it's a teacher. Sometimes it's someone who challenges us. Sometimes it's someone who teaches us through their mistakes. And sometimes it's an entire group of people. For Leonor, that may be the reality. Her development has taken place within a unique combination of family, education, royal tradition, military training, and public service. Trying to reduce all of that to one person would probably miss the bigger story. Chapter 8 The importance of her sister Sophia. There is also another person who has shared almost the entire journey with Leonor, Infanta Sophia. The sisters grew up together inside an extraordinary family, but their constitutional positions are different. Leonor is the heir. Sophia is second in line. That difference inevitably creates different expectations. Yet growing up together can provide something invaluable: normality. Inside a highly unusual life, having a sibling who understands what the family experience feels like can provide emotional support. Sophia isn't simply Leonor's younger sister. She is someone who understands the pressures of being watched, someone who has experienced royal ceremonies, someone who knows the family behind the public image. That kind of relationship can shape a person in ways the public rarely sees. Chapter 9 Why Leonor's words matter. When Leonor speaks publicly, people often analyze her words for clues. And that's understandable. She's the future queen. But there's a danger in taking every sentence as a secret message. A speech can simply be a speech. A compliment can simply be a compliment. And mentioning someone she admires doesn't automatically mean that person determines her future. The more useful question is, what values does Leonor repeatedly communicate? That is where patterns become more meaningful. And the pattern surrounding her public preparation is striking. Responsibility, service, commitment, learning, respect, and a willingness to represent Spain. Those values appear far more important than celebrity. Chapter 10 The role of history. Leonor is also being shaped by people who lived long before her. History can be one of the greatest teachers for a future monarch. Spanish history contains monarchs who succeeded and monarchs who faced enormous controversy. European history is filled with examples of royal institutions adapting or failing to adapt to changing societies. Leonor can learn from those examples. A good future monarch needs to understand not only what worked, she also needs to understand what went wrong. History can teach humility. It can remind leaders that institutions can change. And it can show why public trust is so important. Chapter 11 Leonor's generation faces a different world. There is another influence that previous Spanish monarchs never had to deal with in quite the same way: the internet. Leonor's generation lives in a world where information travels instantly. A speech can be clipped into a 10-second video. A photograph can become a meme. A private moment can become global news. A rumor can spread before anyone has time to correct it. That means Leonor needs a different kind of preparation. She must understand not only diplomacy and constitutional responsibility, she must understand modern communication. And again, Queen Letizia's background becomes particularly relevant. Her experience with journalism gives her a unique perspective on how public narratives are created. Chapter 12 What makes a great queen? Let's imagine Leonor 20 years from now. She is no longer a young princess. She is queen. What qualities would she need? Confidence, but not arrogance. Strength, but not rigidity. Empathy, but not weakness. Tradition, but also adaptability. The ability to listen. The ability to make difficult decisions. And perhaps most importantly, the ability to serve without making the institution entirely about herself. Those qualities don't appear overnight. They are developed through years of experiences. And that's why role models matter. They provide examples of what leadership can look like. Chapter 13 Perhaps the biggest role model is service itself. There may be a surprising conclusion to all of this. Perhaps Leonor's greatest influence isn't one individual. Perhaps it's the concept of service. That idea appears repeatedly in the preparation of a constitutional heir. The crown is presented not simply as privilege, but as responsibility. Military training emphasizes service. Official engagements emphasize representing others. Education emphasizes understanding. Public speeches emphasize commitment. Put those pieces together and a pattern emerges. Leonor is being taught that leadership isn't simply about being important. It's about being useful. That may be one of the most important lessons any future monarch can learn. Chapter 14 The person Leonor will eventually become. There is something else we shouldn't forget. Leonor is still becoming herself. Her future isn't completely written. She will experience things we cannot predict. She will meet people who may change her perspective. She will make decisions. She will make mistakes. She will learn. And eventually, she will develop a leadership style that belongs to her alone. Her parents can influence her. Her teachers can influence her. Her military instructors can influence her. History can influence her. But none of them can completely determine who she becomes. At some point, Leonor must make those lessons her own. Chapter 15 The real answer. So who has shaped Princess Leonor the most? The honest answer is that we cannot responsibly identify one secret individual without a clear public statement from Leonor herself. But we can identify the strongest visible influences. Her father has shown her the responsibilities of the crown. Her mother has shown her the importance of communication and adaptability. Her sister has shared the unusual experience of growing up inside the royal family. Her education has expanded her understanding of the world. Her military training has emphasized discipline and service. And the many people she encounters through public life can remind her who the institution ultimately exists to represent. Together, these influences are shaping something bigger than a princess. They're helping prepare a future monarch. Final the woman behind the crown. Maybe that's why the question of Leonor's role models is so fascinating. People aren't really asking, who does Princess Leonor admire? They're asking something much bigger. What kind of queen is she becoming? And perhaps the answer is already beginning to appear. A queen shaped by duty. A queen shaped by education. A queen shaped by discipline. A queen shaped by family. A queen shaped by a changing Spain. But most importantly, a queen who will eventually have to develop her own identity. One day, Leonor will no longer be able to rely on simply being the daughter of the king and queen. She will stand alone. The decisions will be hers. The speeches will be hers. The responsibilities will be hers. And when that moment arrives, people may look back at the young Leonor and wonder where the future queen was first created. The answer may be found not in one dramatic moment, but in thousands of smaller ones. A conversation with her parents. A lesson from a teacher. A demanding day of military training. A speech before the Spanish people. A meeting with someone whose life is completely different from hers. A moment when she had to remain calm under pressure. All of those moments become part of a person. And perhaps the greatest role model of all is the example Leonor chooses to create herself. Because one day, another generation of young Spaniards may look toward the queen and ask, what can we learn from her? And that will be the moment when we finally discover whether the lessons Leonor received were enough to shape the monarch she was destined to become. Princess Leonor's story is still being written, and perhaps the most fascinating chapter hasn't even begun. Because the question isn't only who shaped the princess, it's what the princess will eventually become. Pause. What do you think has influenced Princess Leonor the most? King Felipe, Queen Letizia, her sister Sofia, her military training, or the people she has met throughout her journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow Princess Leonor's journey toward the Spanish throne, subscribe, because the future queen is still learning, and the world is still watching.